got to be like take 19. All right, Sharks. Today we're talking about supply. Why are we talking about supply? Because it's really important. That's why. It's got to be the number one trending topic. It's got to be the number one topic to track on either Twitter or Discord, right? It's the thing that makes the marketplace go or crawl to a screeching halt. It's the thing that makes people send Bruce Brown to Roham's account, even though they know he can't really do anything with it, and they're losing value, and they don't really seem to care or get anything out of it other than spite, I guess. Not that I didn't do it. I did, of course. But regardless, it's the thing that makes people mad because, well, we're going to get into that. And it's the thing that will make Top Shot stable or unstable. You know, it's the thing that makes people buy a $4 40K, 7 months ago, and then have to sell it for 3 months, sell it for $3 4 months later after thinking they were going to keep it. What good is that? How is that the sign of an evolving, growing market? I mean, if you have to keep moving the goalposts, I mean, what are we doing here? So, I talked a little bit about this in the video, The Great Awakening, The Great Top Shot Awakening of March 2022. You can find that on this channel as well. And I said how the reduction in mint sizes going forward was a concession of sorts. And I expanded upon that a little further in saying that it was a risk to possibly alienate, if Dapper did indeed predict, as Roham said, that they were undershooting their growth targets on purpose for the remainder of the quarter, how does that affect us? And how does that affect our ability to get new users in to participate with us and, buy our moments and things? Because that's what we need them for, right? That's what we need them for. Top Shot needs them to buy packs. In fact, as you go on through this video, and as I go on, what I'm going to remind you of is that Top Shot almost never mentions Marketplace in any context, really. If you think about it, they talk about packs, they talk about trade tickets, they talk about Flash Challenge, they talk about badges, they talk about regular challenge, they talk about sets. Have you ever heard them mention anything mint size? Yeah, they talk about what's on their end. The marketplace is really on our end. That is the dirty little secret, that everything that's happening in the marketplace is kind of because of us, and definitely kind of because of them, because they set the table for it. But for us to be able to succeed, supply has to be turned around. It has to be managed, and they've been going back and forth between, do we front load supply with the expectation of getting new users in towards the end of the set, or do we backload supply when we have demand for these moments and when we need to sell packs? And that's the thing. Do you sell more packs that you need to build a greater marketing budget, or do you sell less packs, sell them to the existing collector base, and hope that new users come in through whatever tactics you're able to use, even if that means that they might be scrapped when it comes to getting a pack, which, as Top Shot has pointed out, is the number one way to keep a collector's attention, is to give them packs to buy, or give them opportunities at a pack. So we're going to jump into all of that. I'm going to say, it's been 3 minutes already, but off the bat, I want to say, for my own personal clarity, that I'm staking this channel on this video. As you can see from the channel, from the video time, this is a long one. I put a lot of work into this, or I will have put a lot of work into this by the time it's finished. And if you never watch another video again on this channel, watch this one. If you have never watched a video and this is your first one, base your opinion on this channel off of this one. I am asking you to do that because this has got to work. Whatever I've done as a collector, look, I've gotten very extremely lucky, in fact. But Top Shot's not about luck. I mean, yeah, sometimes it is, but you've got to know your way around, too. You've got to know how to deal with it, and that's what this channel is all about, is giving collectors control, giving them that power to seek out their own destiny and their own collection, and help them get further and further out the rung without having to deposit every cent that they own. So I'm all about that. We're all about that. That's what we do over here if you're new. But for the time being, I'm saying this has got to work, because if I don't understand this, then maybe I was just lucky. Maybe I did just get a little timely on certain things, or I maybe got in early enough in late April 2021 that I had enough of an idea to know what I was doing to get lucky a few times, and maybe I'm not someone you should be listening to. But this video, if it tracks right, if Dapper understands and addresses this problem the way I think they will, then we're in business. Then I think Series 4 will be a huge success. and the concerns will be mitigated, and probably you won't hear them for a while. I mean, there's some things very much going right. I just noticed, just kind of as a non sequitur, that we haven't had site maintenance in like weeks now. So that's really, really good. We haven't had it during a flash challenge. Really, really good, right? So something on that end is going right. Give Dapper some credit on that. They're doing that correctly. So that is a welcome improvement, definitely. It's going to make everything more attractive to new users. So whatever's happening there is going right. I'm glad to see it, you know. But, and it seems like we're ramping up till April. We've had a string of good hits here. Extra Spice is going to be great. I'm filming this the day before Extra Spice comes out. Throwdowns was really, really fun. If you've done the challenges, congratulations to you for getting the Russ. I just finished the Embiid one. It just fit my collection better than the Russ one because I had some Series 1 and Series 2 Philadelphia Rares already. But, yeah, so before I jump into the problem, and we're going to have all sorts of charts and all sorts of graphs, but let me just, 6 minutes in already. Let me give you a bird's eye. This is colossal, all right? Please bear with me. If you need to skip ahead to the part with the charts, go ahead and do that. I don't care. But here's a bird's eye view. Like, let's take a step back. Let's say you're FedEx, all right? And you have to figure out how to get your packages to the recipients that ask for them, right? You are a shipping company, and you have primarily trucks and planes that deliver your packages, right? So year to year, you think to yourself, all right, well, last year we had this many trucks and planes. We have to figure out how many trucks and planes we're going to need for 2023. That means, what is the price of steel going to be? What is the price of airplane fuel going to be? What is the price of diesel, if need be, going to be for the trucks? You know? And you can look at that a number of different ways. You can go back and say, okay, well, last year, conditions were like this. Or you can say, okay, over the average of the last 3 years, conditions were like this. Or the last 5, or the last 10. The truth is that you can't really know entirely how to predict what the most applicable conditions will be for determining whether you need a certain number of trucks and planes, right? One of your drivers might crash a truck. One of your planes might, not that, anybody's thinking about this, but one of your planes might crash. How many planes, they all need some sort of maintenance. What is the cost of that maintenance? Does it make sense to rent planes or buy them? Does it make sense to make your own planes or buy a company that will help you make them cheaply? If you are a big business like that, you can afford to think in terms of acquisitions. So there is something to be said on that note. But, these are the sorts of decisions that businesses make when they're building in future growth. And I think the smartest thing for all of them, and probably what they would all say, and from all the sites I just read, there's an old saying, and it goes, the best indicator of future performance is past performance. So probably the most similar conditions to what you think you were about to experience is the best model going forward. And that would probably be the last year. But if you know that certain trends are happening a certain way, like let's say you know the price of crude oil is going this way, or it has begun to, and there are analysts telling you, credible analysts that are telling you it's going to continue that way, well, then maybe you buy less planes so you don't have to buy as much oil, and you direct more of that traffic through FedEx Ground, right? So you get what I'm saying, I hope, right? That FedEx needs to deal with supply just like HP needs to deal with supply, just like Dell needs to deal with supply, just like Compaq needs to deal with supply. Every business needs to deal with supply, but they cannot predict whether they're going to blow up. They can only predict whether they have a consistent customer base that they are going to need to provide for at the bare minimum. They cannot necessarily undershoot. They hope to overshoot a little and take a little bit of sunk cost on the back end, right? That's the hope. And that, as Top Shot collectors, is what we hope to see. An approximation, an accurate approximation, because if it's a complete overshoot, the marketplace is going to be a train wreck for the foreseeable future. And if it's not a complete overshoot, if it's, some sort of undershoot, well, then you could see $8 40Ks needed for challenges. And as much as people think that they want that, I don't know that they necessarily do, because it'll make challenges all the harder. It'll make Josh Giddey go into the 700 range, and if new users are having too hard of a time getting a pack, well, then that destabilizes the marketplace as well. So all of those issues need to be taken into account, and we're going to go ahead with the 3 styles. 3+, I think it's 3 at this point. But the 3 styles of supply distribution. And we're going to get to that right now. Without further ado, the Fandom Base Set Proposal, or How to Make a Base Set Without a Basis, by @topshotshark, grand organizing jester of the degens. I say degens because I think it's short for degenerate, and therefore degens doesn't really sound right. And also, this is my general ethos, right? Right. So the question we are trying to answer today is, how do we track the growth of active collectors and how to use that tracking to build the right base set so the other moments can hold their value? How do we build the right base set? And how do we track the growth of active collectors to provide the right base set for the right number of people? I say active collectors because only active collectors drive growth. If you bought one moment in January, I am not knocking that. I am not saying you had a negligible impact, but the active collectors are the one who provide the most precedent and activity that Dapper can then use to predict how many rewards they'll need and how much value they'll need to provide in order to energize the cycle. And the cycle is Dapper sells packs. Those packs have an expected value that leads people to reinvest that value in the marketplace in order to get other rewards, say from challenges or flash challenges or airdrops. That reinvestment generates enough value for people to have enough Dapper to set aside for the next pack drop. So packs, reinvestment, Dapper. Packs, reinvestment, rewards, Dapper. So that's the cycle that the active collectors follow, which is why they also drive the most of that 5% revenue that gets sent to the league, which is why Dapper needs to know how many active collectors they have in order to build the right base set. And so, as far as I can tell, there are four main ways. All right. Number one, number of pack purchasers over time. So the growth of pack purchasers over time. The positives. As stated on at least one occasion by Roham, the most positive experience for collectors is ripping multiple packs, likely to lead to active collectors. So yes, Roham did say that when new users rip multiple packs, they tend to stick around and engage with the platform further. The potential issues. Pack purchasers may not engage on the marketplace and vice versa. Although pack purchasing is a prevalent activity that drives growth, it is not equivalent to all activities. The other piece of this is that the biggest marketplace days have been pack drop days. He said that as well. So while pack purchasing is a dominant activity on Top Shot, and while it leads to a lot of marketplace engagement, it is not analogous and directly proportional to pack or to engagement. I don't know if this is 56% of the engagement on Top Shot. I only know that this is possibly the most dominant way to drive growth. So tracking the number of active pack purchasers is good, but it's not the whole story. Two, number of marketplace activities over time, which include buy, sell, list, delist, watch, trade, and gift. The positives. Engages the demand side of the economy to provide support for pack purchasing, comprehensive engagement. In other words, with all these things that you can do, the people who engage primarily in the marketplace drive a lot of growth and are more likely to come back for all of these different things that they can do at all the different times in which those things would be prudent. The potential issues: market manipulation, bots, undercuts, auctions, and resale validation loops. Now, absolutely, let me explain what I mean by this. There's a bug flying over there. Go away. So, market manipulation is, I would consider that to be anything outside of the normal cycle of active collecting, i.e., packs, marketplace, Dapper. Anything outside of that does not either involve packs or challenges. So there are people who primarily speculate on the marketplace, and they behave in a number of different ways, some good and some not so good. One would be people who bot. Those people drive prices down by creating an unrealistic price standard that other people will want to follow for the value. Another is undercutting, which, if I'm really being honest, the good thing about undercutting is that it usually gets somebody usually takes the undercutter up on their bluff and provides value for someone else. But the bad thing, obviously, is that it also drives prices down. and can drive prices down much further than we can handle as an economy. And then auctions. See, auctions, I do not want to, let's say Live Token, for example. I do not want to knock auctions as a bad thing. For example, one time I bought a LeBron James playoff 12K for 75 as a result of a Live Token auction. And then a couple of days later, I sold it for 175. That was tremendous value, but it creates an unrealistic price point. It creates the expectation that people think they can do better outside of the marketplace. So basically, all of this is anything that drives artificial price movement independent of active user consensus, right? This is what we're trying to avoid in order to keep the normal cycle normal. Artificial price movement independent of active user consensus, which, challenges are related to packs, obviously, and are part of the active user consensus of this normal cycle that we've been engaging in. But these things are typically outside of that normal cycle and generally based solely on speculation, which drives sort of artificial price movement that may have an impact on other things. For example, another example would be challenge prediction speculation. So if you are pretty sure that Paul Reed is going to spike tonight in the flash challenge, and you buy 40 Paul Reeds and you drive the price all the way up to $18 before the challenge even starts, that is marketplace activity that is not necessarily beneficial for the normal cycle. And this is also what I mean by a resale validation loop. So I took the liberty of creating this glossary, and I'm going to provide this sheet on Twitter to anyone who's interested as a read only. And, you can walk through all my work. And if for anyone who has any interest in any of this, you can check my work and see what you think, share it with your friends, look at it, tell me what you think. All comments, I'm open to all comments and thoughts on these general concepts here that I've sort of worked out. But resale validation loop, a cycle of moment price movement independent of collector use cases, owing primarily to separate price movement based on speculation. In other words, here we are. In other words, let's say I'm a flipper and I buy something at a good price for $3. 2 weeks later, the average price over the previous 2 weeks is $5. So I've done that, but I've also driven sort of unrealistic price movement that has nothing to do with pack purchasing. So tracking active collectors, again, the concept being that tracking active collectors does not, in this way alone, does not lend itself to all these other ways. Is not indicative of who intends to buy packs and engage in the normal cycle of growth. So that's the problem. It creates artificial price movement. Number of logins, positives, tracks immediate intent to engage over time. So if you've logged in, you have probably some intention to engage either in the marketplace or a pack, or, well, liquidation, which would obviously be part of marketplace activities. Tracks immediate intent to engage over time because you don't have to log in unless you have some intent to do something with your account. Potential issues, has no direct relationship to collecting. It's pretty self-explanatory. You log in, you don't have to do anything. And number 4, challenge engagement / overall market engagements during challenge time can be applied to Flash as well. Positives, shows the number of users most willing to engage on the platform. Potential issues, may overlap with marketplace and pack activity. So, what was I going to say? Challenge overall market engagements during challenge time. So yeah, this is about this part of it. The part of active collectors that we recognize being pretty important is challenge engagement / overall market engagements during the challenge time. So I think, and I can't make a direct relationship here that I can point to, but I believe that the people who engage in flash challenges especially, or time the challenges over a day or two, can definitely tell you who the most willing participants and engagers on the market are. I think that's reasonable because they become aware of the challenge, they engage with the challenge, and they complete the challenge in a timely fashion, which means you have their attention during that period. They are very willing to engage on the platform for those reasons. The potential issue may overlap with marketplace and pack activity. So in order to track active collecting, this may be, you may find a lot of the same users in this group that you found generally engaging in the marketplace or generally buying packs. So it's not necessarily the best. This is sort of going to be an inflated number, not necessarily reflective of the real number of active collectors, whereas this and this are standalone items that can be tracked independently of each other without much reference to the other. Whereas this has an overlap with groups 1 and 2. So ultimately, I think the answer is to combine all four of these numbers. I know that Dapper has a model for this that is probably a lot more accurate than anything I can come up with. But as we move on to the first style of base set distribution, there is a way for us to determine who the active collectors are. So style 1, mints per anticipated users, aka i.e. Continuing count plus or limited edition. Proactive mint anticipation, i.e. the current system. This is the current system. This is what we've been dealing with. So as of February 19th, 2022, we had RSM equal to 80,896. What is RSM? I'm referring to RSM as Rim Shakers Mint. So there was a challenge, obviously, from if you had participated in the marketplace from, I believe it was the first day of February until February 19th, you would receive a Rim Shakers airdrop for that set. And so there were 80,896 minted, which means there were 80,896 collectors who engaged in the marketplace in early February. So as of then, that is the most accurate number I can come up with, is roughly 81,000 collectors who are active as of the most recent time where the marketplace was not in shambles. And the top, at least to the extent that it is now, the top base set mint for Series 3 is 60,000 CC+, which, as most of you know, means continuing count with the option to backload supply at the end of that 60,000. Attempting to satisfy 81,000 collectors with a top mint of 60,000 in any given moment in the base set seems like you're cutting it close. So front-loaded, the concept here is front-loaded mints to roll out supplies slowly enough that the market can stabilize prices before growth occurs. In other words, you're hoping as Dapper to be able to front-load mints from the beginning and roll out supply slowly enough so that people have access to a fresh range of cereals distributed in a conscientious enough fashion that prices stabilize before growth occurs. Because you don't want to roll out supply too fast, and you don't want to roll out supply, in a way that is, that you can make it to the end of the regular season having distributed everything you want to distribute. Front-loaded mints are one way of doing that. So comparison with Series 2, I took the liberty of tracking the 3 most dominant mints from Series 2. And I did this because I wanted to see if the 7,500s and the 15,000s had a dominant, prevalent place in Series 2 base set. They did not. As of the last Series 2 base set release, before the very end of Series 2, the only mints you could actually find on those packs were 40K, 35K, and 12K. And so I'm going to be rolling with that and assuming at this moment that 7,500 and 15K were actually sort of based on an earlier model during the great boom in February 2021. But the overwhelming number of mints are either 40K, 35K, and 12K. Add those up, you get 87K. For Series 3, obviously, we have 60K and 9.9K are the only two, and 4K. Well, 4K is in both of these. So yes, that's something of a factor, but I'm not thinking of that because 4K is going to be standard across the board for all series. And for that, you see 69.9K, a slight reduction, but has it been enough? The issue with front loading LE, it assumes growth that should but may not happen. So if you front load, if you set a limited edition will not expand mint at the beginning of Series 2, you are counting on this to be stabilized and there would be price support for any 60K that you set. We are seeing a distribution of prices that is like this in NBA Top Shot, right? So there's very little to distinguish the 60Ks from the 9.9Ks. Now, part of that is challenge usefulness. So the 9.9Ks just haven't had a ton of that. We've seen little things revolving around in the wheel, for example. You must have a mint for this moment less than 12K. So this would apply. This would be a very cheap way of doing that. I need to check time real quick. This would be a very cheap way of achieving that goal, but for the most part, there hasn't been a distinguishment. And this is the sign of what I would consider an unhealthy market, or a market where there's enough supply that there doesn't need to be a ton of emphasis on the top moments. See, what we have in NFL all day, by the way, for comparison, is this. And this is more what it was like in Series 1 and early Series 2. You had, like this, because there were less top moments as a proportion of the whole, that the top moments stood out more. So more people would flock to them attempting to see growth based on that. Whereas the more moments you roll out, there's more price support that gets distributed to the lower tier moments that it takes away from the price support of the top. Thus, you go from this to this. It gets flatter and flatter as you have more moments that need attention, where people are redistributing their value. So yeah, that's the problem with this approach is in order to have mints per anticipated users, you really have to correctly anticipate users. And what we're seeing in Series 3 right now, I don't know. I don't know if that's been done correctly. I don't know if there is a rabbit in the hat that we are supposed to look for that will justify that 60K top mint. Obviously, as I said in March, the reduction to 30K as the new base set standard, the top base set mint going forward, is a concession. It is a concession that they are not entirely sure that they can keep us happy and grow their platform simultaneously. And that is not a bad thing for us. We welcome that. But again, reduction of future supply does not constitute reduction of current supply. The issue with front loading CC Plus creates a range of wholly undesirable serials as percentage of the distribution. So let's say they decide, and they're definitely not going to do this because there are no CC Pluses at the moment. Let's say they decided to turn up 60K to the top mint of 80K. Then you'd have mints 60,001 through 80,000 that had to be released entirely in future Series 3 base set packs. So if 80% of the first 60,000 mints had been distributed already, then that 20% of those first 60,000 mints plus 100% of the last 20,000 mints would and by the way, the last mint that usually goes for a premium would no longer be the last mint. So a bunch of people who bought the last mint would be pretty miffed with that. But, CC Plus creates a range of wholly undesirable serials that are a disproportionate percentage of the distribution after that continuing count is expanded. So I honestly think CC Plus should be scrapped altogether. I don't think it serves any purpose. There's no value that you can glean from that. It is, there's no use for it because you can't anticipate the number of users, set this high mark, and then give them a disproportionate number of high serials after the fact. I don't think it makes any sense. The collectors are going to, it's going to reduce resale values even further. And it's, I don't see how you continue this. I think Alan Falcon, who I talked to, I gave the sort of cursory details of this plan in a previous Twitter thread, to whom I gave him the cursory details. He's got to be considering the end of CC plus, because he realizes that backloading supply is where's the market for that? It only creates, a unnecessary value suck at the end of a series, which I don't know if that makes any sense. I certainly don't think it's the most efficient way to create more supply. Let me check time real quick. Okay, we're good. I got some time here. When LE doesn't have that problem, but it has a similar problem, which is that if you are locking in that number of mints, you have to be able to correctly anticipate users. And I will argue, at least for Series 3, that hasn't happened. So let's say there's more efficient ways to do this. Style 2 of creating a base set, let's call it mint staggering. New mints as a proportion of all mints on the platform. So I want to break this concept down to you real quick, and I want you to hear me out on this. The finality of a moment's release does not increase or maintain scarcity or expected scarcity. Now, what do I mean by this? So a moment release is the release of a moment in packs, right? The finality of a moment's release does not increase or maintain scarcity or expected scarcity. In other words, and this is going to be a pill that some of you aren't going to like very much, but because Top Shot rolls out their moments in a slow enough fashion, distributes their moments in a slow enough fashion, so as to, as I said here, where is it? Roll out supply slowly enough that the market can stabilize prices before growth occurs. Because that actually happens, the rest of a 40K's release does not decrease the price. It does not increase scarcity or maintain scarcity or expected scarcity, because the scarcity is built into the price already. All 40K competitors, all the 40Ks competing with each other, are based on a current price right now, which is $4. It was $4. It has gone down to $3. That is a 50%. That is a 25% value drop for the median price, right? So, but that price is already built in. So supply being distributed does not decrease value because prices are already built in. There may be more of a case for this for rare and legendary moments, but at least for the base set, the finality of a moment's release does not increase. It doesn't change scarcity because we already have a price expectation from previous series. So how do we address the fact that scarcity is unlikely to change much with the end of a moment's release? What did I write here? For LE moments, actual scarcity decreases with distribution. Actual scarcity. So what do I mean by this, by the way? Scarcity is the state of lacking finite resources in general. Expected scarcity is projection of resource distribution. So Dapper needs to be accurately be able to project the pace of resource distribution, but the pace of resource distribution does not affect price points. Supply not yet burned, released, or permanently traded does not affect price points in any way if there is cheaper competition, which is basically what I just said. So the problem with making a 60K top mint for the Series 3, which is the series right after Series, is the base set right after Series 2, is that it brought the price of Series 2 base set down. It is direct competition that is immediately cheaper. It means there is a lot less, no matter what the collector score benefit is, and if people don't have the Dapper to raise their collector score, it hardly matters. Let me check time real quick. No matter what, there is a limit on the growth of Series 2 because you created a very similar series right alongside of it. At the same time, the growth cannot be established. In other words, you didn't totally double Series 2, but you created direct competition that was right cheaper, so the pace of moment distribution doesn't matter. It does not matter whether there are 20,000 of a 60K left or 40,000 of a 40K left. It doesn't matter because the price expectation is already set. So let's look at top mints just to see where we should possibly start our work in terms of creating a better system. So the Series 1 top mint for base set was 3,999, aka $4,000, which would be implemented in Series 2 and 3. The Series 2 top mint is 40K, as we all know. And the Series 3 top mint is 60K, as we all know. The total, if you add all of those up, is 103,999, which you could refer to as 104K. So hypothetically, it is counterproductive to suggest that the platform cannot support higher or equal top mints in a successive base set. But it is also counterproductive to attempt higher mints for the sake of the appearance of growth or any mandated benchmarks beyond realistic projections. It is counterproductive to assume an anticipated user base by an anticipated time. It is counterproductive to generate higher or equal mints for the sake of the appearance of growth, like, just for appearances. But it is also counterproductive to not create higher mints because you think that you can't. See, if you create equal or higher mints, then you're projecting growth. But if you don't create equal or higher mints, then you're projecting a receding economy, which is going to make people run for the exits. So you can't necessarily just roll out lower mints, but you also can't necessarily create higher or equal mints just for the sake of making it seem like you're going to grow, because that could work out the way Series 3 has mostly worked out, and this could work out as to losses as well. So time real quick. I'm gonna create a new 30-minute clip here so that I can rework everything into the editing. I'm not gonna have enough time to explain everything. So what do we do about this? So what we can do is create new mints as a proportion of all mints on the platform. In other words, if the portion of entry-level pricing is 12K, and by entry-level pricing I mean all prices and moments within 50% of the price floor per series base set, but we could apply that to Series 2 and Series 3 since they're so comparable at the moment. Thus, portion of entry-level pricing, if 12K is the top mint, 103,999 plus 12,000 equals 115,999. If 12K is the top mint, then it constitutes 10.3% of the entry-level pricing moments. And if 40K from Series 2, for that matter, it comes out to 34.4% of that total entry-level mint. This means that you can mint 3 different 12K LEs as needed without competing with S2 40K. In other words, if you mint 3 12K John Morants, over the course of a series, you still have less than 140K. And yes, you have less in 3 12Ks than you do in 140K as a percentage of all of the other entry-level priced moments and mint editions, right? So if you have 3 12Ks, you have that. The goal is to treat each new mint as a responsible percentage of the whole of all of the other entry-level mints that are competing with each other. Series 1 is not competing with these, but it is competing with other non-base commons. So I look at it that way, but I also look at it as if the curve flattens enough, even this could come down to 18. It's not hard to see a Jermichael Green TSD for $24. So what if that comes down to 18? Then what are we talking? But and if this is too valuable, it could come up and compete with this. Hopefully not, because Series 1 has a special place. Anyway, yeah, it still is the entry level for the series, but for special considerations, it is more valuable. Anyway, positives of this approach in general, without this Series 1 exception really being factored in too much. Treats current supply out of circulation as future supply, allowing previous moments to act as entry level for new users. In other words, the moments from previous series that have not been distributed through packs become greater than the future or the current series entry level mints that have yet to be released. So there's more moments waiting in Series 2 and Series 3 than there is in this system with anything you can produce from Series 4. So the unreleased or the unopened Series 2 and Series 3 are now the dominant supply, which makes them more valuable, which makes Flash Challenges more valuable, which makes Series 4 more valuable. The drawback, of course, is that you've created significantly less minting, and it hampers possibilities for both the current series and future series. If you really do grow, double the active users you currently have now, then this is suddenly, you're starting to see inflation that people maybe can't even afford. It favors the whales way more heavily. And that could be an issue all by itself. Obviously, we don't have that current problem now. It's not it's a problem we would like to have right now. But there's a chance it skews too far in the other direction, because when I first saw Top Shot, Derrick Rose 40Ks were going for $12. And that's too much, man. You can't do all the things that Top Shot does if the most affordable moment is $12. So there's the other side of this too. I know we don't really want to talk about that, but there's the what if everything is too expensive. There's a happy medium that has to be met. And this is one way to do it, but if you are simply saying, okay, the top mint is X prior to the season, you can create a responsible percentage of all the entry-level mints, but you can't adapt on the fly as needed. So this is one aspect of Style 3, which I'm about to reveal, but it's not maybe the most complete solution. And so my proposal, the Fandom Base Set, which on a functional level I will refer to as retroactive mint rotation. The concept is new dynamic mint additions throughout a series. In other words, an MSFE base set. And I wrote a little note here that says minting can occur in real time, as in MSFE, dependent on or independent of challenges or flash challenges. So in other words, it's MSFE without the flash challenge is. So if the ability exists to mint dynamically over the course of a series instead of presetting top mints before a series, here's what can happen. Combines the best aspects of mint staggering with the freedom and relative foresight to enhance moment content without being locked into fixed supply earlier or later in a set. For example, so let's say you want to do mint staggering. You want to release responsible percentages of the entry-level pricing over time, but you want to be able to do so flexibly without creating too much of a mint. If you can track the growth of active collectors, if you can do that, and I believe Dapper can, you start off with, hypothetically, these in October. Cam Johnson 12K, Malik Monk 12K, Marcus Smart 12K, Kevin Durant 12K, and Giannis 12K, based on the moments that are available to mint. As long as they are sufficient of the level, honestly, of base set Series 3, which I think the play quality is really, really high. But as long as you can keep that play quality, let's say that you can find 5 available plays from Cam, Malik, Smart, KD, and Giannis that fit. So you say, okay, let's start with a 12K with the expectation that another Giannis does not have to be minted later. Could be February, could be March, but it could be December if the content sort of demands it based on the quality. Like you have that flexibility. So in November, just follow along with me for a minute. Devin Booker 12K, Dwight 12K, Suggs 12K, Cam 12K, Middleton 12K, McGee 12K, Westbrook 12K, Cole 12K, Kyrie 12K, Giannis 12K. So Giannis had a monster block on, say, Io DeSunmu, and it was such a monster block that Austin was like, we got to mint this one. We got to get the permissions. We got to get this out here. And the product team says, okay, what we can do for you is give you a 12K mint for that Giannis right now. We're not expecting, we're expecting more Giannis moments that are dope,
but we need to make sure that we pace the moment distribution responsibly. So I'm giving you a 12K for this one. You've got a max of 4. Well, maybe you don't have a max of 4 on the base set, but it depends on, because we're expecting maybe that the total mint for all of the Giannis moments in base set is going to be no more than 60K this time around. Maybe this is series 6 or something, right? Because we're expecting that the total mints of Giannis are going to be, no higher than 70K, we're going to give you a 12K for now because we expect more Giannis moments in the immediate future. So through January, let's say you have 36K Giannis's. Maybe you do another one in March, but you're limiting yourself to no more than one per month, pretty much. And you're saying to yourself, okay, if I know that Giannis is going to do this many incredible things, and I know that I want to keep it roughly below what the max was the previous series, then you can comfortably carve out a 12K as, again, like 10%, 10.3% of the total number of Giannis's that there are at the entry level, and still a third of a 40K. So we're going to start out with a third of a 40K and hope that we get, no more than 4/3, maybe 3/3, maybe 5/3 of that. So as you can see, you get to mix up the number of total mints across a base set, all LE, by the way, all LE, without overloading the system in a too fast a way, while also having the flexibility to mint as you go. The results of all this, I'll run it down for you. 12K Cam, 12K Bookers, 12K McGee's, 48K Jaws over 4 plays, 12K Monks, 12K Smarts, 12K Westbrooks, 24K LeBrons, 12K Tatum's, 12K Dylan Brooks, 12K Dwight, 12K Onyeka Okongwu, 12K Cole Anthony, 12K Cam Thomas's, 26K KD's, 36K Giannis's. You now already have less than 40K, but you have 3 plays now for that 36K. You have a fresh range of cereals for each. You've minted 3 of the best Giannis moments you could find, and you know that people are going to want those nasty Giannis moments, and now you can provide more of them than you're providing of the 12K Mo Bambas, but you're doing so in a distribute as you go fashion without setting it too far in the past and not having the flexibility to mint what you want. So the pangs that Austin Kent feels, Austin, I feel you, brother, but I think I can provide a way for you. I think this can provide a way for you to mint as many jobs as you want, and as we want, by the way, because you don't think we're going to be excited about all those things that Ja does? Yeah, we are. And Ja could do 22 incredible things in the course of a season, and we want to buy. We do. Maybe you don't give us enough moments. If there are 48K Ja Morant moments and 12K Onyeka's, not only see the total market cap of a 12K Onyeka, and this is really all proportional. I'm not saying this is the whole base set. I'm saying, let's say there were 4 times as many Ja moments as there were 12, as there were Onyeka Okongwu's, but there still weren't as many as 60K. But if you wanted to add another Ja moment, let's say you made it a total of 5, that would still be 60K Ja's, right? The market cap for this 12K Onyeka is probably going to be comparable to the market cap for these Ja's. These might be cheaper, but you have these plays. They're more exciting. You get to produce more value for this 4-play market cap, and you get to mint flexibly. You get to mint plays flexibly over the course of a season. Now, if you take, let's take make sure we get some role players here. Claxton, Dwight, Onyeka, and Cam Thomas are as many as the Ja. You have to believe that the Ja is going to have a higher market cap, all 4 of these, and yet you've minted more moments that people want while not technically, I don't know what the situation is with respect to having a certain number of plays from a certain number of teams. I wonder if that's the reason we have Isaiah Jackson 12Ks and things like that each team has to have consistent representation on the platform. That would make sense because it's a function of the National Basketball Players Association, and the teams and the players need to be represented in a certain way. But, and you know, obviously Top Shot has to get permissions for all of these moments. They have to get permissions for the video rights to be used. Probably the reason that the Cam Johnson dunk over PJ Tucker in the finals didn't get used, because as we all know, if there's one moment to mint from that finals, it's Cam Johnson obliterating PJ Tucker in that finals. We didn't get it. I don't know why. It's probably somebody must have nixed it on the line. Oh well, it is what it is. Cam has a pretty sweet moment from the finals already. It's okay, but it's not the moment, as we know. But yeah, those approvals have to be met. They have to be done in a timely fashion in order to meet mints for the pack, any packs that need to be sold. But you can see on a proportional level, this can all happen, right? I mean, you throw in other 12Ks for mole players, Io, D'Anthony Melton, Buddy Hield, you know, Halliburton, you know, and you do so, you know, based on the content that exists, but you make sure and take a break, you know, so that you're pacing yourself over the course of things. And even if you, let's say, as we said here, that the number of active users has increased 16.67% between December and January. Now, with respect to the Jalen Suggs example above, weigh future mint additions against existing total mints. Yeah, that's the pacing concept of having mints in succession that are slated to be at least less than the previous series number of mints, but possibly more if you need, if the growth is happening, if you can track the growth in a productive way over the course of the series. If the first mint of a player for a season, players should start at the original standard division of the anticipated supply. So 12K out of the 60 or out of the 48, whatever, you know, but 12K is a pretty solid division. Still could leave you with less than a third of a 40K overall. And everything is LE. CC plus does not exist. Does not exist in this model. So yeah, you're starting out at a relatively, like, even Series 6, Series 8, Series 10, you may start out with a 12K, and if there's a giant boom that you need to account for, or there's just a 17% boom, you go, okay, well, the last KD was 12K, we need to make this one 14K, you know? And if KD's hurt for this time, then you have an automatic window, right? If Kyrie is gone for half the season because he's not taking the thing, because he's on health and safety somethings, you know, then you don't have any Kyries to mint for these 4 months. So that slot essentially gets taken in practice by maybe Bruce Brown, our friend, maybe Spencer Dinwiddie, maybe Dorian Finney-Smith, you know, and those spots can be allocated based on the quality of the play, but not necessarily, you know, we must meet this number of moments. You can scale up at the end if need be, but if you are pacing yourself from the beginning, then you have every expectation of meeting the number of moments you think you need by the end of the series, while also creating lower serials that make packs more attractive and make the marketplace more attractive, while also not competing with previous series at this bigger entry level space here. Gives them time to breathe, to come up from $3. Hopefully by the end of Series 5, we're talking maybe these are worth $10. Who knows? I don't know. But that's the point. You can't necessarily take consumer sentiment around NFTs, decide that you're going to spend this much money on the product, and then believe without a shadow of a doubt that you're going to have 600,000 active collectors by May 2025. You can't do that. If we could, then people would know exactly when they were going to win elections and things like that. You know, this is a lot of this is conjecture, and we have to be realistic and say, if we believe that we can nail this, then we'll go ahead and mint to demand. If not, then we have to be more realistic and sort of take all of this into consideration and just keep it at 12K. Keep it at 12K. You can do that. Bring it down to 9. Who cares? You know, maybe a certain number of moments need to be sold for pack purchases, but you can do that. Then you bring out let's say in February, supply hasn't quite met what you think it is going to meet, or demand hasn't quite met what you think is going to meet, and supply maybe, because, you know, so many people got hurt, you don't necessarily know. Then you can mint goodness gracious, mint. How many are here? 6 times 4, 24. Mint 24. Isaiah Jackson, Sterling Brown. Mint all those Top Shot debuts that you got. Mint them all. Mint them all in rapid succession, but leave the top mint where it is. Mint them for, create that demand based on people wanting to keep their series teams, their series team for that series intact. Create value based on that. Just throw them all out in May, whatever you want to do. You have those options later if you were pacing yourself. You can, but as long as if the top mint is actively a fifth of what it currently is in Series 3, you really don't have to worry about supply so much because you're creating new players. You're creating people who can, you're not creating people, but you're creating new Top Shot debuts that will have some sort of value one way or another because they are the only moment on the platform of that player. By definition, they are not competing with the Series 2 or Series 3 entry-level pricing. They're only competing with other Top Shot debuts. And as we've seen from the 4K mint, those 4K prices will stay consistent because it is the same as in Series 1. There is no more scarcity to this. As long as there aren't a lot more moments of the rookie 4-badge caliber, there are not, significantly more. There's no significant reason to buy or to sell any less for a 4K now as it will be in 10 years because it is the same scarcity. It is the same value, across different tiers of players. And, people are going to want 4Ks for the end of time. It's still low enough that people can support that price. And I'm excited about this. It's no different than what already happens when a player factors into an anticipated common set. It's no different than what already happens when a player factors into an anticipated common set. Yeah. So, if there is, let's take game recognized game let's take Extra Spice, for example. If there's Bam Adebayo and you're going to mint a 6,500 Bam Adebayo, or it's a 10K. Let's say this is earlier in the Series 3 roadmap, and you're going to mint a 10K Bam Adebayo. You are holding off perhaps on minting, the second of the two as it currently stands. You are holding off on minting the second of the Bam Adebayos from the base set until you get to that Bam Adebayo Extra Spice. It may serve as the second moment from base set. Maybe there's only one for Bam because you're using that other common as a proxy for the other base set moment. Same could be said of DeMar DeRozan. The fresh threads are a prominent example because you have to curb. I don't believe Top Shot can mint. This is my theory, at least my running theory. I don't believe Top Shot can mint moments from players from their previous team. If you've seen, once Victor Oladipo got traded from the Rockets, there were no more Victor Oladipo Rockets except when it's run it back. And even then, as we've seen, the team icon is not the present team icon. It is a sort of out of the team lexicon. There are licensing issues there that I think exist, but suffice it to say, throughout base set and other commons, you're going to see DeMar with the Bulls. And, that because that fresh threads has to stand alone from a price point perspective, you're going to have to make sure that DeMar, there aren't too many commons from the series competing with DeMar. So that's basically this. Just because it's another anticipated common set doesn't mean you can't use that same principle. Holding back future DeMars in order to let previous DeMars breathe, but minting as you go, right? Extra Spice mint got changed from conceivably 10K to 6,500. Why? Because the collectors wanted it lower. And as a result, the common set was EV+. We've seen this already. Just because they called it Extra Spice doesn't mean it isn't exactly this concept that you mint to demand as you go. We've seen this already. This can be done. You can mint as you go. Just because it was a change in the previous roadmap that was due to a large, marketplace fall off doesn't mean it couldn't be done in base set as well. And if you want to mint those other, I have theories for more, interesting common sets that are non-base set, but we're not talking about those now. I'm just using extra spice as an example of how you can absolutely do this and how this has absolutely been done just outside of base set. And so the overarching theme here, the reason for doing this is it preserves play flexibility, mint flexibility, team flexibility, set flexibility, because you can do this with other common sets and rare sets, whatever you want to do. Distribution flexibility, price support, challenge saturation, i.e. ability to exhaust price support and listing during challenges, and growth flexibility, unlimited moment cap, without requiring consistent collector liquidity to reap rewards. It preserves everything. You can use any play at any time. You can use any mint at any time. You can use, you can fill out any team number of moments that are required at any time. You can, like, the Isaiah Jackson, the Sterling Browns, just pop them in there, especially if there's the trade deadline happens and a bunch of people are on teams that you need to fill moments with. Set flexibility, because you can move things around through different sets, like we've already seen with Fresh Threads and Extra Spice. Distribution flexibility, price support, because there will be different, price supports for these things, but ultimately they will be equivalent to each other in terms of the mint. You won't immediately see the price be dragged down by a 33% or a 50% higher mint that is in direct competition with the mint you just minted. Challenge saturation. This is really important. We don't talk about this nearly enough. Challenge saturation happens to be something where, let's say you have Trey Jones is needed in a flash challenge on one night, which he was, and there are 4,000 of them. I think there's only 4,000, right? He only has one moment on Top Shot. Let's say there are 1,000 buys that night, which is very realistic considering we have 80,000 RSM, 81,000. Well, let's say there are 2,000 buys and the price goes up to $600. The next night, as we've seen in behavior on the marketplace, probably half of those people are going to sell, which means the other half are going to be holding a loss, and they're not going to want to give it up. At least probably 20%. Let's say 20% decide they're not going to sell at a loss the next day. They're going to wait for future challenge uses, which I think is a good strategy that I often use, but I'm not recommending it to anyone. On the basis of, no financial advice to be found here, obviously. Then you're creating a bunch of holders who are not motivated to sell based on how the marketplace price will, immediately drop after the challenge is over. We've seen that all, infinite number of times here. And, you see all this dumping. It leads to extreme price volatility to do things that way. But if you have equal possibly, if you have sort of composite mints over the series of a couple of months, you are not only not competing with previous series, you are not only providing more options of plays, like 4 jaws instead of 10. Yeah, it leads to more jaws on the platform overall, but it doesn't lead to more jaw mints on the platform overall, while providing that essential play flexibility that keeps people around and interested and fun, without having the graduated mints from series 2. That challenge saturation of price spikes, price goes all the way back down, possibly past where it was pre-challenge, but possibly not. That 25% of it could be up to 25% of the supply being held the next day for a much longer span, which means there's a lot less cash flow coming in and out of that Trey Jones store value, right? There's just less Trey Jones to be sold. There's less Trey Jones that you want to buy because of the price volatility. And if he isn't needed for a while, that price will just sag and sag and sag beyond what it really should be, because too many people aren't selling, and then there's all this botting and undercutting activity. Essentially people, I'm forgetting this slightly, but challenge saturation makes it harder to buy at a reasonable cost, because you have excess number of artificial buys based on the challenge, and then you have, too many people not selling, that the price can either just, completely collapse after a challenge, or it can go completely through the roof. That volatility is not good, because it leaves people with all sorts of unrealized losses that they then don't want to take, which means there aren't enough of that moment for sale. Yeah, you get the point. Saturation of moment ownership beyond the normal listing percentages of a moment that we don't want to see. Um, and if we can avoid that with all of this, then it won't require consistent collector liquidity to reap rewards. In other words, people won't always be tapped down on their dapper. I firmly believe that if we can track the growth of active collectors, we can mint to demand. This is basically the headline. We can mint to demand over time, gradually, if greater, if needed. If the marketplace is sagging, you can even lower this and fill in the required number of total base set moments with players that maybe haven't gotten a Top Shot debut from teams where they may be new. I increased the number in this example. I increased the number of Jalen Suggs from 12K to 14K because the number of active collectors, if tracked accurately, increased 17%. So that was a direct move. It could be 12% if you feel like you need to raise prices a certain amount, or it could be 19%, but you're at least within the margin for the active users you have already tracked. It's retroactive based on the number of active users who have either become active or have joined the platform and immediately become active. You have done this proportionally retroactively instead of proactively based on projections you don't know can stabilize the market long term, or create conflict with moments competing with each other that can't escape each other's price points. So that's it. Yeah, that's the concept. Dynamic mint additions set throughout a series, gradually increased or decreased, as needed.
Now, the last piece of this are the realistic pieces you have to consider. This is for the general audience, not anyone at Dapper who might be watching, which I don't expect there to be, but if you do, please consider my proposal. If it makes sense, there may be. I suspect there are smarter minds at work in the offices there, but this is my take. This is my opinion piece for a channel, but I also believe there is an element of unavoidability to the concepts I'm talking about, and I believe that if we do not address mint distribution in a responsible, sustainable way, there could be unintended consequences, and I want to avoid that if not possible, because I want to continue enjoying and engaging with the platform. I think everybody in my sphere of media membership wants to see the same thing. So I can't speak for everyone, but the realities therein for the audience, people. The revenue agreement that Dapper has to meet with the league. The 5% from the marketplace, probably over the course of an NBA season, if not the course of a calendar year, has to be a certain amount. That percentage has to be met, probably to pay for the rights to the NBA content. I'm assuming that's what it says. Obviously, I haven't looked at any contracts. That's not what I do. But that is a reality. The reality of pack sales that Dapper needs to generate profits for their investors. That is a reality. The reality of supply in order to sell enough packs to bring enough people in. So there's another cycle of sell packs, generate value, create media speculation, bring in new users, sell packs to those users. So that's another growth cycle that's happening outside of the current active collector base, but it is still one that needs to happen. Is why you see things, with companies like Boardroom, or you see them bringing in a Celtics reporter like Abby Chin. That all makes sense. That's all what we want to see, them partnering with other media outlets. I mean, those are the way you bring people in. Media, good PR from internally from the collectors, word of mouth, things like that. Obviously, literal advertisements that are on your screen, whether it's the little one or the big one, and any of the screens in between. All that is great. There are other artificial drivers, though. That's the one thing that may make supply more ambitious than it can be. But with this proposal, with this Fandom Base Set proposal, with this dynamic minting over time as a composite with more play flexibility and more more connection to the other series as a percentage of the whole, I don't see how those concerns can't be addressed, because you can mint more later in the season, and you can release those packs slower after the series is over. So as many 12Ks from players, as many Top Shot debuts as you may mint at the end of the season, for example, obviously any of this can be changed, you're not releasing them all at once, because you can split all of these different mints into different packs. And if you have dynamic mints minted over the course of a series, you can only throw the first 1% of 100. As an extreme, you can mint 100 new moments, distribute 1% of them by the end of the series, and then distribute the rest through the subsequent series. You can do that because you haven't committed to certain benchmarks. And you can also, I just thought of this actually, you can also, what's the word? You can subvert price expectation on the basis that there could be a new equivalent mint to whatever has come before, or a new dynamic mint at any time. So while 40Ks may be competing with each other, more 12Ks may not be competing with each other, or more MSFEs may not be competing with each other, if there is an unknown number of mints. And I recognize that this may be harder for at least one party, but I still believe that if the math is done on a calculator as to how many mints the system can handle at one time, I still believe that you can come up with the right number of mints by the end of the season, or by the end of the series, or by the end of the next series, if you are simply funneling them in for later distribution. Right? You can do that. You can get it in right under the wire if you absolutely have to, if you think this is the millions of moments that you need. As collectors, we don't necessarily want to see that, but as long as you haven't released the supply of new moments, then it doesn't affect us until the growth that you think you need to meet is met. So this has been over an hour, and I'd like to say thank you very much for joining me. If you made it to the end, wow, you're a trooper. Thank you. This has been my contribution. I hope my strongest to date to the Top Shot ecosystem. If not, well, I fervently and graciously and humbly await your comments, your criticism, your FUD, your rage. I'm sure there will be some of that too. What makes this guy think, yeah, I was a little late to the party. I got in late April. So what? If I can provide the right content at the right time, marketplace of ideas, you're welcome. So, as always, thank you for joining me. If you're new to the channel, why not like or subscribe? If you are not new to the channel, thank you for being with me this far. And I anxiously await, eagerly await, what the motto will be for Series 4. We should all hope that it is as responsible, as conscientious, and as fair and just as it can be. This is my way of doing that at this time, and I thank you for coming on this journey with me. Have a good day.